Hello, friends. I'm Andrea Morris, and welcome to another episode of Spill the Wine, our podcast about wine. And we have a great episode in store for you today. We are at Flat Rock Cellars, which is a winery with an absolutely spectacular view. And I'm here with Ed Mardonich. Did I say that right?
Mardonich.
Yeah. Mardonich,
who
is the owner of Flat Rock. See, I got Domain Kellis wrong a couple times when we were doing that, but now I got it. Mardonich, who is the owner of Flat Rock Cellars. Welcome, Ed. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here.
I have to say, I've been to your winery on several occasions, and I've always enjoyed it. The wines are spectacular, and the view is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, to me, it's about putting together a great experience. So the view is part of that experience, and also part of that experience is great wine. So we try and do it all. I can't take credit for the view. It was here when we got here. I can take credit for taking advantage of the view.
So you didn't build Toronto after you?
No, I didn't. No. Yeah.
But yeah, and you know what? Living out here and looking across the lake and seeing Toronto, it's like, yeah, hustle and bustle. And then over here, it's like relaxing.
Yeah, I lived in Toronto, and now that I'm on this side of the lake, it's great. It's a little bit calmer, less traffic. And so, yeah, I love this end of the lake.
So how did you find this property?
Great story. So I was working for a big wine company. My dad had an apple farm outside of Hamilton that he sold. And he's a farmer at heart. And so he was looking for property. And the big wine company that I was working for was looking to purchase this property. And my dad ended up, after he had met the owner of this property had met with the big wine company, my dad sort of knocked on his door and they hit it off. And the farmer wanted to sell it to my dad. And so that's really how we ended up with this spectacular property.
Now, they were obviously a vineyard beforehand?
It was a vineyard, not with the vinifera grapes that we have on it. And we sort of started right from scratch. We ripped up all the vines, we let it lay fallow for a year, and then planted the varieties that we believe do best here in this place, but also in Niagara.
Now, how did you decide what varieties to plant? Did you do some soil samples, or
Well, absolutely, we were looking at soil. As I mentioned earlier, I was working for that big wine company, so I had a lot of insights into the property and what would be great here. Looked a lot at the weather and the soil. Climate was a big factor in terms of what we were doing. Because I think in Ontario, what had happened was we sort of planted everything when we started our wine industry. And, with learnings, you sort of taste the wine. You're like, maybe we shouldn't be growing this variety or shouldn't be growing that variety. So we landed on Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Riesling, which to me, over the last 20 years, have proven out what are the best varieties for the bench in Niagara, where we are. Those really are the strongest varieties, in my opinion. So we're really pleased with what we did. And I think one of the big, I'll say, innovations, if you want to call it that, was up until then, Pinot Noir had not done well in Niagara. And a part of that was because of how we purchase grapes. We have a great marketing board. The price of grapes is set. So a grape grower wants to grow as much as possible. And that's not good for Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir likes lower yields. And so owning the vineyard and allowing us to control those yields really is what makes the big difference when it comes to Pinot Noir.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And you have like a limestone sort of base here for the Pinot?
Yeah, so we're right on the Niagara Escarpment, right? And if you passed your grade 9 geography, the Niagara Escarpment is 440 million years old saltwater sea. And over time and pressure, created limestone sedimentary rock and created layers and layers of limestone, sandstone, shale. And that's the foundation of what we have right here, which is awesome. And when you think of others, very Canadian, we look at what happens elsewhere. But when people talk about wine in great wine regions, often limestone is at the heart of it. So whether it's Burgundy or Saint-Emilion, limestone is at the heart of great wine regions. And just for your listeners, one of the big reasons why is it has lots of cracks and crevices, which get rid of water. So we want to get rid of water, and it forces the roots to go down farther and farther and find that water. And as they go further and further, now they're touching more and more rock, more and more of that minerality that we talk about in wine. And that's really why limestone is at the heart of every, or not every, but most great wine regions.
I had that visual of when you were talking about that, of the roots just going down and just kind of like spreading out. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's cool. And when you come here, because we're right on the escarpment, there's outcroppings of rock. So you can actually see the layers and you can see the cracks and crevices. And so you can visually not just have to imagine what it's like, but you can actually see what the vines would do to go find water.
Is that how you got the name for the winery?
So Flat Rock Cellars, yes, to a certain extent, absolutely. I believe wine comes from a place. And that place is very important to wine. And so when we did the under drainage for the vineyard, we pulled up a whole bunch of flat rocks. And so it very much represents the place in which we grow grapes. There are literally tons of flat rocks, and they're everywhere here, and we pull them up all the time. And so to me, it represents the place where my wine comes from.
I love that. Yeah. And it also makes for great t-shirts.
It does. It does.
And listener, when you come here, you'll notice in the tasting room, there are little rocks all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, we celebrate where the wine comes from.
And what year did you, when you bought the winery, was it the same year? You obviously had to plant the grapes and let it sorb. So what year did you actually open to the public?
So we didn't open to the public really until 2005. It was sort of the spring of 2005 was our official opening.
And when did you actually buy the property?
Got the property in 99.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's what it takes when you have to plant we bought it in 99, let it lay fallow, planted the following year. Then you have to wait several years and grow the grapes and get zero fruit from them. And then 2003 was our first harvest. And we only did, I want to say, 500 to 600 cases. 2004 was a bigger vintage. And I want to say we probably did, let's say, 5,000 to 6,000 cases. And then in 2005, it was a short crop. So we went right back down to not a lot of wine. So it takes time to get to the point, and patience. Yeah, absolutely.
And have you had the same winemaker the entire time? Or
No, I've had a number of different winemakers. I feel like sometimes I'm training the winemakers, not just for here in Niagara. I've got winemakers that are now around the world that are head winemakers at amazing places. That have all started their roots here at Flat Rock Cellars. And so I've always had I love young and dynamic winemakers. It's always been a sort of a hallmark of the hiring for me for winemakers, because I love that youthful curiosity that allows, I feel like sometimes I'm the steady hand because I know the history of everything. But I love that youthful curiosity that winemakers have when they're young, and it gives new ideas and new life to what we do, which is really important. And right now, I have a consulting winemaker who was my winemaker, Marlies, from like 2005 to 2009 or 10. And it was her first winemaking job, first head winemaking job was here at Flat Rock Cellars. And now she's back as my consultant, and she consults all over the world. So, which is great. So I feel like I've got history and youthfulness and curiosity and experience and passion built into our winemaking team.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
I love that you have that like embracing change and just like evolving.
Yeah, I think, I always say to my team, and it doesn't matter whether it's winemaking or it's sales and marketing or it's just, our administrative processes. If we aren't getting better, we're falling behind, right? And so I'm a huge believer in always trying to do things differently, better. The way it was done yesterday doesn't have to be the way you do it today. If you can find ways through experience and knowledge and trial and experimentation to find better ways to do things, I always want to do that.
Do you have a philosophy in the winery on like your price points and things? Do you have like some wineries are like, oh, we want to be like high end, and other ones are like, we want wine to be affordable for everybody? Like, what's your...
So great question. And to me, that's maybe the most important question, I think, for consumers to understand from wineries is that objective. And And I would say a few things. First thing, when it comes to wine, there are dogmas out there: organic, biodynamic, natural wines. And when you follow a dogma or an ideology, you have to follow the rules. It's like a religion. And sometimes those rules prevent you from making the best wine possible, right? My dogma is make the best wine possible. So the first thing I can say to anybody who comes to Flat Rock Cellars, we don't cut corners. We are trying to make the absolute best wine possible. That being said, how does it come to pricing? I don't view my colleagues here in Niagara as my competitors. I view them as my colleagues. I'm not trying to compete against them. I'm trying to compete against the best in the world. And so I always want to over-deliver at the price point against what any customer here or anywhere in the world can buy at that price point. So if there's a Burgundy Pinot, which I know we kick the crap out of quality value-wise every day of the week, but I'll put my $25 Pinot up against $100 Burgundy any day of the week. Against Oregon, against California, against New Zealand. Wherever in the world they're growing Pinot Noir or Chardonnay and Riesling in those cases, I want, when you taste my wine, I want you to go, wow, that's a great wine. And when you look at the price, it's over-delivering versus what else is out there. And that's always been at the core of who we are at Flat Rock Cellars. And it's translated, I think, well from a business perspective.
I love that. It's just like, make the best wine you can and then
sell it at a fair price.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other things, there's a lot of, I don't like, and this isn't true of Niagara, it's true of, there's some models that are sort of, I call it the cost plus model. Well, it costs me this much to make the wine, and I'm going to charge, double whatever it is, right? Even though that wine may be terrible. Like, the customer doesn't care how much it costs you to make the wine. What the customer, it's one of the great things about wine is it's very democratic. You have lots of choices. And if you don't like a wine at that price point, you're not going to buy it, right? But if you find those wines that are built with passion and care and deliver on the quality and the taste you like at a great price, buy more of those wines.
And everybody has their own distinct palate as well.
100%.
So yeah. I might go nuts over this Pinot that's sitting in front of me, and Lukas, my producer, might go, whatever.
And I think that's one of the mistakes we sort of, in the wine industry, we're like trying to force our wines on people. Like, if all you like is Australian Shiraz, and that's all you like, you probably won't like my wine, because I don't do Shiraz and I'm not in Australia. And that's okay, right? I want you to drink what you love, not drink something because of any other reason or because I tell you should be, right? It should be drink it because you love it. I always say to people, don't drink with your eyes. What I mean by don't drink with your eyes is we are trained to drink by price, by region, by label, by score, right? And oh my God, that got a 90 point. Oh, that's a $100 bottle of wine. Oh, that's from Burgundy, right? And I always try and say to people, close your eyes. Close your eyes, drink the wine. After you've tasted it, drink with your heart. If you love it, drink more of it. If you don't. And if you open up your eyes and see it's inexpensive, don't reject it, right? If it only scored 85, but you love it, don't reject it, right? And don't just love it because it's a 95-point wine, And we make that mistake too often. We drink with our eyes, not with our heart.
I never look at scores, and I don't look at price. I'm just like, I just want to taste it. And if I love it,
Do you have like an unlimited amount of money that you don't have to think about price at all?
No, but when you do a podcast, sometimes you get deals.
Okay, good. All right.
I don't often buy hugely expensive bottles. Yeah. But if I'm at a tasting and I'm like, I'm going to die if I don't have this wine. Yeah. Or you think about who's the person I want to share that with.
Yeah.
That, because there's nothing better than having that wine, even if it's a cheap bottle, whatever that wine is, that you can sit down with a friend and enjoy that.
Yeah.
And that they're going to get the same pleasure out of it that you do.
Yeah.
Then I don't think cost matters.
Yeah, I actually think it's one product category where cost often does not reflect your love of it, right? So a car got this much horsepower, it's got leather seats, it's got this. Like, you can analyze the difference between this car and that car, and it comes down to specifications and stuff. Wine, that doesn't exist, right? There are $500 wines that most people won't like, right? But the wine writer will tell you how great this wine is, right? And the industry will tell you how great this is. And it's got the romantic story around it. So you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to pay $500. Like the number of people who fall over really expensive wine and the wine is terrible. I'm not saying terrible, but it's not worth it, right? Is amazing to me, right? And then there's the $15 wine that you go and like, oh my God, this is so good. I could drink more of this, right? And people reject it because it's only $15. It is this bizarre, we drink because of our eyes. We drink because of social pressures. We drink because of preconceived notions of things. And it's one of the things I think that makes Flat Rock Cellars unique. And for me, what we do that's dramatically different than most, I'm interested in breaking down the barriers to wine. I'm not interested in breaking down the barriers to Flat Rock Cellars. I want to break down the barriers to wine for people so they can embrace it and they can love it and they can make their own mind up to it, because our industry has created all these artificial barriers to loving wine. It drives me crazy, right? It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be from somewhere particular. It just has to be something you love. Right. And that to me is what we try and do here at Flat Rock Cellars. We try and educate in a fun way that's not sort of, that snobby, pretentious way that I think wine sometimes can come across as.
And it's actually just hearing you say that is like why I started this podcast, because I would invite people out for wine tasting and they'd be like, I don't know anything about wine.
Yeah.
Like, but you don't have to. That, and it doesn't matter because we all have our own distinct palates. What I like, you might not like, but it's all about finding that out. And it's such a beautiful journey to go to different wineries and to actually taste what the terroir means to each, the terroir means to each vineyard, and just the love and the passion that goes into it. Like you can taste that in every bottle.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I truly believe there is something intangible in wines made by small producers that have a passion and a craft to them that the bigger producers don't necessarily have. I'm not saying those bigger producers' wines aren't great. That's not what I'm saying, and I'm not saying other people. But to me, there's this intangible taste.
But there's also that flexibility that you don't have to. That each vintage doesn't have to taste the same as the last one.
Yeah.
That you can have that uniqueness of like. What was 2023 like? What was 2024 like? And that year is captured in that bottle.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And it's one of the things I think we don't celebrate enough in Niagara and even in wine. We're always trying to pigeonhole, that vintage is great, or that vintage is great. And all of a sudden, it's not that they're better or worse, they're just different. Like, I always think here in Niagara, when we have a cooler vintage, the wine geeks and the sommeliers love the wines because they're funkier, they're earthier, they're kind of this gnarly kind of wine, right? And then in the warmer vintages, they're more fruit driven and they're, and the average consumer loves those wines, right? And so it's not, someone will say that vintage is great. It's not better or worse, it's different. And that's what makes wine so special.
Yeah. It's like how it varies from everything factors in. Temperature, like everything. And then the soil and whatever the touch the winemaker has. So
100%.
Yeah. And I'm just like sitting here staring at these glasses of wine thinking
great.
They must be drank soon.
All right.
So now you've told me that we're going to do tastings in a little different way here.
Yeah. I'll throw this out there, right? I'm going to break one of the big myths of wine. And I will argue that after we do this quick little tasting, before we go through the wines, you will never drink white wine before red wine when you're doing a tasting like this ever again. How's that for a challenge?
Okay.
All right.
Challenge accepted.
There you go. So I think one of the things that, again, this is the preconceived notions of wine. If I do a tasting with a group, I'll ask, hey, when you're doing a tasting of wines, a flight of wines, do you drink whites before reds? And everybody's whites. Everybody puts their hand up whites. And then I do this tasting, and invariably, by the end of it, they are not going to do it. So I've got just a Pinot Noir and a Riesling to try. We'll come back and taste the wines. Your listeners just need to know right now we're drinking a Pinot Noir and a Riesling. So we'll start with the Pinot.
It's the 2023.
Yeah, 2023 Foundation Pinot Noir, I think it is. So this is just, I want your reaction to You don't have to. We'll come back to tasting the wines, and you'll give all the tasting notes in a second. I want you to experience the red before white, which we can drink. So now what I want you to do, you've tasted the Pinot, delicious, nice, soft, great, classic Pinot. But now you're going to try the Riesling. And as soon as you taste the Riesling, and as soon as you finish the Riesling, taste the red. So you're going to taste the white, and then immediately taste the red. What happens to the red?
It's fuller.
So you get, what do you mean fuller?
It was like, it tasted a little, like, it's not, like Pinots are traditionally to me a little bit thinner, but this tasted like fuller and softer after I had.
So that's completely opposite. So you're one of the 5% that are completely opposite.
Really?
So if I do it, it makes the Pinot taste drier, harsher.
See, I didn't
kills
find
all
that
the
at
fruit
all.
flavors. Okay, so what I would say is just have a couple sips of Pinot.
Okay.
But I want you really to swirl the Riesling around your mouth and try the and so just have a couple sips because you got to readjust your palate back to tasting the Pinot. So taste the Riesling, swirl it around your mouth. Okay, now try the Pinot. See what happens. Try it again. We'll see what happens.
Okay, that time it tasted harsher.
Yeah. You just didn't have the full. But and there's a science behind it. So there is a science behind it. Ed's not making this stuff up, right? There's a science behind it.
Okay.
So what we did there is we went from a dry wine to Nadja's Vineyards is an off-dry wine. It's not a lot of residual sugar, but there's a little bit of residual sugar. And as soon as you go back to a drier wine, it heightens the dryness, right? So I'm trying to think of like what a food would be, right? Like comparison would be. But you never go something that is, if you drink something dry and you go to sweet, it doesn't affect the sweet wine. But if you're having something sweet and you go back to dry, it makes the dry harsher, bitter, kills the fruit flavors and stuff like that.
That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it did make that on the second time I tried.
Yeah.
It did, but I swirled it around in my mouth more. So.
Yeah. No, and the point here is you should always go. It's not from red to white, but the point is you should always go from dry to sweet. You always drink from dry to sweet. Now, why does it work from red to white? Because reds invariably are like, yes, you could probably find a 25-gram Cabernet from California, which has a whole bunch of residual sugar. And in that case, you might try a zero sugar Chardonnay before that. So there are exceptions to the rule, but you'd be hard pressed to find them. Most red wines are dry. And even if you had let's say a Chardonnay, which has the same residual sugar as a Pinot, the red wine has tannins, so it dries your mouth. So it has a greater perception of dryness as well. So if I did this with Chardonnay, the difference wouldn't be as noticeable, but the Pinot would be worse after you tasted the Chardonnay because the Pinot has more tannins than the Chardonnay and it has the perception of dryness.
So if you consistently tasted reds before whites, would it then? That's interesting. This is really cool. I'm liking what you're saying. Because I'm like, whenever I've done wine tastings, it's always whites first and then reds.
So I laugh. One of the places that I laugh the most at is when you go to a Bordeaux, they have the big Bordeaux tasting in Toronto, right? And the Bordeaux red, young Bordeaux, they're always young Bordeaux reds. Young Bordeaux reds are as tannic can be, right? Like it's like, oh my God, that's tannin. And so everybody, what they do is they have these beautiful, elegant white wines that they drink first, right? And then they ruin their palate with the reds, and then they come back, and then they go home and they got this awful thing. Go when your palate is freshest and most open to things, and then you drink the reds first, and then you finish with these beautiful, luscious whites from Bordeaux. It's the best way to drink. And it's to me, when you do this and people experience it, you understand why you do it, right? And I'll give a practical example. I was here, this was years and years ago. I was working the tasting bar, and these two ladies come in and they say, well, I'll start with your whites. I said, no, we start with reds here. No, whites first. I said, no. Where were you? I said, okay, try this tasting. And so they did the tasting. It was like this light went off in their head, like, oh my God, right? And I said, okay, where were you? She goes, well, we were just at Angel's Gate. And I said, okay, so you went through their whites. You ended with their Sous Reserve off-dry Riesling. And then you went to the reds, and you didn't like the first three reds. No, we didn't like the first three reds, but you liked the fourth one. Why do you think you liked the fourth one? And they're like, well, because it was the most expensive. And I say, yeah, it probably was the most expensive, but you you hated the first three because you just had a sweet wine and it took you 3 sips of something else to get your palate adjusted back to dry. And the fourth one, you're like, oh, I like this, right? So there's actually a practical taste. If you taste my wine after you have my off-dry Riesling and you taste my Pinot Noir after it, you're never going to like my Pinot Noir, right? So it's really important the way you taste.
What if you had water between those? Would that
it would help clean it up. Water,
but
food. Food is a great equalizer, right? So I would never say you have to, in a meal, you have to start with your big tannic reds. You can have an off-dry Riesling with that vinegary salad. You can have a Chardonnay with your soup or whatever, and you can have your big tannic red with your steak. Go for it. The food balances out. I'm talking about when you are tasting a flight of just 6 wines like we've got today, and you're going from one to the next. I want you to taste them, or you should taste them in a way that's going to make sure each one of those wines is showing its best form, right?
That makes complete and total sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I completely appreciate that, and I think I might be sold.
Yeah, you will be.
Okay.
The more you try it, you'll see how it works.
All right, Ed, bring it on.
Trust it.
Let's do it.
All right, you want to try some other ones?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
By the way, this Pinot was really nice.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's our 23 Foundation Pinot Noir. We really have, so after all of that talk about reds first, we're going to go with reds first.
Okay.
And what you had when we're making, Pinot Noir is our red. We are trying to make the absolute best possible Pinot Noir. Everything is hand-picked, hand-sorted, gravity-fed, French oak barrel aged, the whole 9 yards. We let it age for 10 months, and then we sit down and we start tasting every single barrel. What we're trying to do is we're trying to decide which wine each barrel is going to go into. And we do 2 Pinot Noirs, our Foundation Pinot Noir and our Capstone Pinot Noir. And I'm not going to say they're better or worse. They are definitely different. Now, we have different vintages here, but they are definitely different wines. The Foundation is meant to be a little bit softer, a little bit rounder, a little bit more fruit forward. I'll say less grippy, less intense. Where the Gravity Pinot Noir is meant to be a little bit richer, a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger, if you will. If you're a Burgundy geek, I would compare the difference between Volnay, which the French like to describe as feminine, and Pommard, which they like to describe as masculine, right? And that's what we're trying to make 2 wines. And when we taste the different wines, it's like, oh, this one should be Gravity, this one should be Foundation. And that's how we approach it. The cost for me is exactly the same because it's the same barrels, same farming, same everything. It really is a question of where we want to put those barrels. And then one has more volume than the other and one's higher price.
And so they're from the same vineyard?
Everything's from Flat Rock. All different. We have different clones, different rootstocks. And when we pick, we don't start at the top corner and pick all the way down. One of the things that we try and do always is make sure we are picking the grapes at the perfect time. And, if it's in the higher part of the vineyard, when we come talk about the vineyard and why the vineyard is so special, if it's at the higher part of the vineyard, that's a cooler part of the vineyard, so it takes longer to ripen. So I don't want to pick that at the same time as I pick the bottom part of the vineyard, which is warmer. And you say to me, well, Ed, it can't be that much warmer or that much cooler, but it's probably 0.1 or 0.2 of a degree difference. But over the course of 4 months, 5 months, it makes a dramatic difference in terms of when the grapes ripen. So that's one of the factors that goes in. So we'll pick little blocks, and I've got, call it 35 acres of Pinot Noir. I'll pick that 35 acres probably upwards of 18 to 20 times to extract the best quality of Pinot Noir every harvest.
Do you hand pick or machine pick?
Hand pick.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's hand picked, small hand picked baskets, loaded onto a tractor, drive up, unload, hand unload them. Yeah, it's crazy.
Cool.
Yeah.
So which one are we going to taste first?
You can start with the Foundations. This is the one we did with the red versus white, but this is our Foundation. 2023 should be, again, you'll find it brighter. I'll let you taste.
For a young Pinot, it's just got it's very inviting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
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 I'm not going to give you tasting notes because we all taste differently. We all like different things.
I hate when people give me tasting notes.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you. Don't worry, I won't give you tasting notes.
Well, you should smell this on the nose.
Yeah,
but
no, I won't give you tasting notes, but
there is a little bit of black currant on it,
Yep.
I think, and
Yep.
a little bit of, but with the berry, like I think maybe a black raspberry. But you know what? I always say this on the podcast as well. You could come here and taste something completely different than what I'm tasting because we all have very distinct palates.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But and I could say that this is the most amazing Pinot I've ever had, and somebody else might go, nah.
If you wanted me to get really technical on tasting, I'll tell you why that's the case. Do you want to know why that's the case?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little bit of a story, but CBC did a documentary called Wine Confidential. They came here to the winery. We had about 30 people, professor from Brock. She gave us all a solution, looked like water. And she hands us the exact same solution. She looks at us and says, for half of you, this is going to taste like water. For 40% of you, it's going to taste a little bit funny. For 10% of you, it's going to be completely undrinkable. And we're like, one, how is it possible that we're going to have completely opposite reactions to drinking the same thing? And two, how can this professor predict it? What the percentages are going to be? Sure enough, 16 of the 30, water. 12 of the 30 tasted a little bit funny, and for two of us, it was completely undrinkable. So she nailed the percentages, the whole 9 yards. It was crazy.
Wow.
All it was a test for bitterness. And bitterness is one element of wine. And so clearly, we all have different sensitivities to bitterness. And I've done this before. You can take a piece of wax paper, punch a hole in the wax paper, put it on your tongue, dab some food coloring with a mirror. You can count the taste buds on your tongue. For the people who it tasted like water, 10, 11 taste buds in that little hole punch. For the people who tasted a bit funny, 14, 15. For the people who it was completely undrinkable, 45, 50, 60 taste buds in that little hole punch. You can have as few as 200 taste buds on your tongue, as many as 10,000. You are born that way. It does not change, right? It's physiology. It just makes sense. We all can't run the 100 meters in the Olympics, right? So if physically we're different running, whatever it is, why wouldn't we be different from a taste perspective, right? Why wouldn't our taste physiology be different, right? And so what that translates into is, for me, from a winemaking perspective, me and my winemakers, we got to know what our palates are, right? And one story, I had a winemaker, he was like, oh my God, this is the greatest. We have a little bit of Gewürztraminer. Oh, this is the greatest Gewürz I've ever had, right? It's awesome Gewürz. And I taste it, and I go, oh, it's pretty good, but it's bitter. No, what are you talking about? He wasn't sensitive to it. I am sensitive to it. So it could be a great wine, but we all have different sensitivities. How it will be for your listeners, and every one of your listeners has experienced this. They've gone to somebody's house. It's usually the guy who pulls out the really expensive wine and tells you how expensive it is, and you taste it and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? This wine sucks, right? So we've all had that experience where someone has said, oh, I love this wine, try it. And then you've tasted it and gone, I don't know, that's not for me, right? And that's because our physiology of taste is different between you and different from me.
That's really cool. Thank you for that.
There you go.
Because it kind of like backs up everything I've been saying, from the first episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's usually a reason for everything, right?
But you actually explained that really well.
There you go.
Or your professor did. So
yeah, it's all great.
Yeah.
So you want to try the next wines are 2020 Gravity, right? So 2020 was I'll say a warm year in Niagara. And so you can see a different color, deeper in color.
Very much deeper, yeah.
And just a different vintage. And like I say, the first wine to me is beautiful and pretty, and this one, well, give it a try.
This is an exceptional wine.
Thank you.
Because it's just for a Pinot, it's full. It's like more full body.
Yep, and that's what we're trying to do every year, right? That's the difference. So you can really clearly see the difference between those two wines.
You know what? That's the kind of Pinot that I would open and just drink for fun, as opposed to. Oftentimes, you think about Pinot, what are you going to pair it with?
No, I just drink Pinot for fun. Just so you know.
I mean, like, you know what I'm going to pair this with? Fun. Me.
Great. Love it. Yeah, and I think for us here, it really is about the vineyard, right? I know everybody talks about it. This vineyard here at Flat Rock Cellars is very special. There's there's things that we have that nobody else has, even in Niagara. The first is, you notice we're sitting nice up high in the escarpment, and you can see the house way down below. That's a 2-story house, so it's probably 30 feet high or whatever, right? And it still looks small down there. The the elevation change from top to bottom of our vineyard is almost 100 feet, right? So it's a 100-foot drop. And that's really important. I can put a 10-story building down there and you'd still see Toronto across the lake. And that 100-foot drop, nobody else has. Because when we were clearing land in Niagara, we weren't clearing it for grapes. We were clearing it for, raising cattle and wheat and stuff like that, right? This, for whatever, and if you look over to the far left there, look west, you can see how it all flattens out. So where we really only grow grapes on flat land in Niagara. On the bench, a lot of vineyards have a gradual slope to it, but no one has a 100-foot drop slope in it. And it's a big difference, right? And that's great for water drainage and airflow, okay? The second thing where we are is we're one of the farther away from the lake vineyards without being over the top of the escarpment. And so what that does is, because the escarpment runs like this, and so what that does is we are colder in winter because we're farther away from the lake, but we're also warmer in summer. And that warmer in summer is a big, important thing because it gives us lots of flexibility at harvest, right? Where another vineyard that's colder than our vineyard, they're going to be crunched up against the weather and the cold at harvest time. Where I have the flexibility to say, hey, I can see it. We know we're ripe. We can pick now. We can wait a few days. We have much more flexibility. So year in and year out, we are picking sooner and we have flexibility that other wineries don't have. And with Pinot Noir in particular, it's also true of Chardonnay and Riesling, but Pinot Noir in particular, it gives us the flexibility to make great wine every single year, right? Where you talk about 2020 was a great vintage and everybody could make great wine in 2020, maybe true, but we make great wine every single year. And that's not because we're magical in the winery. It's because we have this slope and we're farther away from the lake that allows us to have, and we're also near the crest of the escarpment, but not at it. And what that means is the airflow from the lake and the air mass from above it are meeting at Flat Rock Cellars, and it's always windy here. So we have these three crazy factors that nobody else has, because you can see, this is it. There's no, above us, not the same, nobody below us, nobody to the east of us, and to the west, it's flat, right? And so we have this postage stamp of a uniqueness that does not exist, that allows us. So when we talk about terroir, that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about site-specific features, that's what we're talking about. And, you sometimes don't believe that, like, oh, across the road can't be, should be exactly the same. This vineyard proves it, right? Those features make all the difference. And it allows us to make, I'll say, amazing wine every single year. We're not hoping for a good year. We're making, it might be different, but we're making an amazing wine every year. And it allows us to do it at a reasonable price because I don't have to do outrageous things. So someone else who has a colder vineyard, they're going to have to cut it back more so they have less yield to try and ripen that fruit properly, right? And where we don't have to do that, right? Because we're going to ripen the fruit properly and we're going to have better balance in the vines. Everybody talks about low yields. Low yields are important, but not crazy low. Crazy low means unbalanced wines, right? Grand Cru Burgundy is 35 hectoliters per liter. It doesn't really matter. And that's what we do, right? So to me, it is the balance in the vine is very important. So we can make the best wine every single year. And because we have that great flexibility, economically, we can do it more cost effectively. And we don't have to go to extraordinary measures to do great stuff.
Now, the wines and the vineyards up above.
Yep.
I know there's the Nages Riesling, but what are the other ones?
So I got a little strip of Gewürztraminer and then more Riesling on the other side. A different clone of Riesling.
Do really well.
Yeah, we like the cooler up on top, right? The cooler and shallow soil, so that those roots get right into the limestone right away. So we just like it there, Yeah.
But the legs on this gravity, I'm just going back to this, are just amazing. Like, this is just such a beautiful Pinot Noir. Listener, you really have to come here and taste this because it's spectacular.
Thank you.
And I will say I've never been disappointed by your gravity.
Thank you. For me, not everybody's going to like every single one of our wines. That's just because we all taste different.
Yeah,
because we all taste different.
Yeah.
But what I love about people coming in and gives me great joy is when they sit there, it happens, I'll say most with Chardonnay would be the one variety that, because everybody's, I don't like Chardonnay. And then they taste it and they're like, oh my God, this is really good, right? So let's maybe segue into Chardonnay.
But it's like, you know what? How did Chardonnay get such a bad rap? Because it's like, it's Chardonnay now become the Merlot? Remember
yes,
Sideways?
Oh, no, yes, I totally. And I think Sideways was just like its 20-year anniversary, I think.
Yeah,
just
right?
recently.
But it's like,
yeah.
So Sideways was like, Merlot, I hate Merlot. But I find a lot of people have that with Chardonnay, and I don't know why.
Yeah, or it's unoaked. Well, I only like unoaked. And again, I'm going to say it's because what they hear, it's what they hear as opposed to what they actually. And again, drink. That's the drinking with your eyes, right? You're letting your head get in the way, and drink with your heart. So,
right.
But I'm with you.
Because I don't know how many people went. And I would say that at some point I was guilty of it because, when I first started drinking wine, I drank Chardonnay. And then I went away from it because I thought, I've got to be more pretentious.
Yes, no.
But now I'm like, especially living here, there's so many varieties of Chardonnay and it's done in so many different ways. And you would be foolish to not.
Yeah, and we talk. You're right. Chardonnay can be done in so many different ways, and we actually talk about that. Like, how do we want? Like, and it's not like, we do our Chardonnay, and that's it, and this is what you get every year. It's the same, right? We're trying to experiment and learn. Like one of the things I saw, I was at a trade show in Milan in the fall, and I saw this really cool system of ceramic barrels that you can spin, and so you can stir the lees in a really cool way. And it's ceramic, so it's unoaked, but there's a breathability to the ceramic that softens the wine. And so it's something that I want to try because I think it'll be super cool. But it'll expand our knowledge and our flavor profile with Chardonnay, which I think is wonderful. So it's pretty cool.
So we're starting with the Good Karma.
Yeah. So
which I like the name of it.
Yes. So Good Karma. I just picked this wine because one of the things that's very, very important to Flat Rock Cellars is sustainability and community. To me, those things are together. And one of the things that we are privileged by in the wine industry is we get to eat really good food. Like, we don't go to a wine show and eat bad food.
Yeah.
We get to eat the good stuff, right? And we have access to really good food. There's lots of people in our community who don't have access to the same quality and, quite frankly, amount of food that we have being in the wine industry. And so the team decided they wanted to support the Ontario Association of Food Banks, which is now Feed Ontario. And so the proceeds from this wine goes to Feed Ontario. Over the last, I'm going to say 11, 12, I don't know how many years. And so we did this before COVID realized that there's people in need. This has been a passion project of mine and my team's. We've provided over 200,000 meals to people in our communities who are less fortunate when it comes to access to quality food. So we're very, very proud of that. And the tagline is full stomachs, happy hearts, because without a full stomach, you'll never have a happy heart. And so I just wanted to choose this wine. It's a great, straightforward, awesome Chardonnay. It's got a cool name because we can all use a bit of good karma.
Yeah.
And it's meaningful to our community. And
and you're drinking for charity. You're drinking for a good cause.
Drinking for a good cause.
Yeah. Very crisp.
Yeah. It's meant to be crisp, straightforward, delicious.
Yeah.
Easy drinking. Yep.
And then
I can start giving you tasting notes, but I won't. No, just kidding. It's all good.
But no, it is good. It's good karma.
Yeah.
Good karma
100%.
Chardonnay. Yeah. So how much is the good karma?
I want to say $15.95. I could be $16.95, but don't hold me to it.
Well, you know what? Either way, 15, 16, you know what? You could drink a couple of bottles of this and you're helping people.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, it's you know, it's a good cause, and it's close to our hearts here at Flat Rock Cellars. You know, we feel a responsibility. You know, we do tons of environmental things here, so crazy environmentally friendly facility, but we have a huge belief that supporting our community, supporting our people is part of our job. So we do that every day.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know what? That makes me feel really good about drinking.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So speaking of drinking, now we're moving on to the Rusty Shed.
Yeah, the Rusty Shed Chardonnay. So this is our barrel fermented, barrel aged, big ass, great Chardonnay.
Oof, the nose on this is like
intense. It's great.
Yeah, it's.
Everybody always asks, where's the name? So the Rusty Shed. There is a Rusty Shed.
It out there.
Yeah, the Rusty Shed is in the middle of the vineyard. So as the story goes, true story. My dad would come down and he would go, how can we have this beautiful winery with this rusty old shed in the middle of the vineyard? Get off your lazy ass and paint it. And so I named the wine the Rusty Shed, got it bottled. The first wine off of the bottling line I grabbed. I raced to my dad's house. I said, Dad, here's a bottle of the Rusty Shed. We can never paint it.
Yeah.
And he goes, you've been avoiding work all your life, right? And now you're just getting more creative at it. So that's why it's called the Rusty Shed.
It's so
true story.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
You know what? It's just for it's interesting the difference between the Good Karma, which is a good Chardonnay.
Yeah.
But this is just like next level.
Yeah.
It's just so complex, and just like you can taste the oakiness in it, and like there's because it's always that little buttery caramel kind of thing that Yeah,
look,
it's so beautiful.
The first one is much more straightforward. It has a little bit of oak aging, but very little, more stainless steel. It's, you know, we've done less to it. Whereas the Rusty Shed, we press the juice, we take the juice, we ferment it in barrel, we stir the lees, we let it age in barrel. There's different barrels with using different yeast, different fermentations, different stuff. So a lot more has gone into building the complexity of this wine, and hence the price difference and things like that.
But you can tell, and it's just absolutely stunning. And never paint that shed.
Believe me, I won't.
No, it's like every time, you know what? Every time I'm here and I hear Rusty Shed, all I can think of is the B-52's Love Shack.
Yeah.
You know, but it would be like different thing. It's like Rusted Shed, Chardonnay.
All right.
So now we're moving on to Riesling.
And
we talked about Nadja's Vineyard.
Yeah, we talked. So Nadja's Vineyard. Nadja's my mom. I was a bad kid growing up, so I've got to make it up to my mom. So the first one we're going to do is our 2023. And Riesling's a little bit different than Chardonnay and Pinot Noir because, to me, we do nothing to Riesling. We hand pick it, we hand sort it, we press it, we put the juice in tank, we ferment it, we bottle it, and then we stop the fermentation and we bottle it young, right? We try and stay out of the way. When you taste our Riesling, you're tasting the vineyard, the soil, what Mother Nature gave us that year in terms of climate. So to me, when you taste our Riesling, you are tasting Mother Nature in a bottle. And that's really what we do. And, so that's what you've got there.
And Nadja's Vineyard always has spectacular Rieslings I think it's because it is so cool. Like this one, you can tell this is the 2023.
Yep.
So you can tell it's young, and it's got a little bit more of a citrusy vibe than previous, like the older vintages.
Yep.
But it's just still really nice, easy drinking. I could drink this now and have no problem with it.
I always get so Nadja's Vineyard's the drier of our Rieslings, right? And so I always, people they think Rieslings has to be sweet, and I think one of the great things about Riesling is it's got this bright acidity that balances your palate, that gives you a freshness. Yeah. Like this to me is the chewy wines that you can drink a lot of because they feel lighter. Like, the next wine we're going to have is only going to be 9.5% alcohol, right? So our 2015, and it's 9.5% alcohol, but it's a killer wine. And we think of alcohol, you have to have high alcohol. No, you don't need to have high alcohol to make great wine. I think it's one of the great things about Riesling. It's not about high alcohol. It's not about oak aging. It's about tasting Mother Nature. And to me, that's the absolute beauty of Riesling. And we do it here in Niagara, I'm going to say better than anywhere else. I really, truly believe it, right? And I know Germany will be upset, but what we have here is, spectacular stuff. Like we're going to have the next wine we're going to have is a 2015. So it's a 10-year-old wine, and it has another 30 years of life left in it. Like our Rieslings will age for, I know for sure, for 40 years. We did a 20-year vertical of Nadja's Vineyard a couple of years ago. And the 2003, so our very first vintage of Nadja's Vineyard, was tasting delicious. It was spectacular and still had lots of life in it. And that's from young vines. So, our Rieslings will age, along with our Pinots and Chards, for a long, long time, which speaks to the place, the terroir, right? And I think that's, for me, is what Flat Rocks. Remember, we talked about what Flat Rock Cellars, where the name came from the place. That's what I'm talking about, right? Like, it's the place, the soil, the climate, but it's also on the other side of it for the customer. It's the view, it's the architecture, it's the hospitality. You know what I mean? Core to who we are is place.
It's
right?
the experience as well.
100%.
Yeah. So now we're going to go to the
2015. So this 10-year-old wine that's, to me, still lovely and fresh, still lots of life, but you get that age characteristic.
Like a young Riesling tends to be a little bit like crisp, but this is very soft and it's sweeter.
A little bit.
This is a beautiful Riesling. Yeah.
And it's got that, everybody wants to go petrol. It's not petrol.
It's not petrol at all.
It's more lanolin, kind of paraffin waxy kind of characteristic that is the oil character that we get. We don't get the diesel that they get in Germany.
No.
We get, I think, that's why I say I think we're better than Germany. We get a much more pretty, much more beautiful oily character, which is that paraffin wax, that lanolin kind of characteristic, rather than diesel, right? Everybody's like, oh, I get petrol on it. I don't like petrol. I don't want to drink petrol.
I don't want to drink gas. No.
Having a little bit of paraffin wax or lanolin, is much more appealing.
This is absolutely stunning. It's such a great wine, and it's like you can see if you left the 2023, it would evolve into that.
100%.
Yeah.
And so now I'll toot our horn a little bit, right? So how I can show you that this vineyard is special is a couple of years ago, we won Best in Show at the Decanter World Wine Awards. So biggest wine competition in the world, probably the most prestigious wine competition in the world. And to become Best in Show, you have to go through the first tasting panel of all the Rieslings from around the world. And the judges taste all the Rieslings blind, and they decide on who gets a gold medal. Those gold medal winners goes to a second blind tasting panel. And they decide, of those gold medals, are there any platinum medal winners that would go forward? And there would be one or two maybe that would go forward. And then the third and final blind tasting panel doesn't taste just the Rieslings. It tastes every single platinum winner. Cabernet, Merlot, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, the whole 9 yards. And decides which of those platinum medals are best in show. And so to go through 3 blind tasting panels to win best in show, 97 points, and it's a wine that I just told you is all about the vineyard. We had nothing to do with it. Tells you how special this vineyard is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well done, Ed.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Here, cheers to you.
Cheers. That's great.
It's like, this is such a treat, and thank you for sharing this with me because it's so beautiful.
I'm glad we could open it up for you.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? I feel like we need to sit here and drink the rest of it, but we can't.
Yeah, we probably will. Show's over.
Well, Ed, this has been an absolutely fantastic experience.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you came and got to experience it. Hopefully our goal here at Flat Rock Cellars, my goal is to share our passion with you, with your listeners, and hopefully break down some of the barriers to wine that prevent people from enjoying it as much as can be enjoyed.
I think that we have accomplished that. And I'm so looking forward to coming here again, like, when the view is full of greenery.
Yes.
And just like to be able to bring people here and to let people know about what a fabulous vineyard you have is absolutely fantastic. And you've changed my mind about wine tasting. So you know what? You're the man, Ed.
Great.
I just got to
Love
say.
it. Well, thank you very much for coming. I look forward to seeing you again.
So, you know what, listeners? Be sure to visit our show notes because we're going to do a recap of the wines that we've tasted. And there'll be some photos and some information on the website so you can visit Flat Rock. And also, don't forget to like and follow Spill the Wine. Tell your friends about the podcast so we have more people coming here. Ed, you're going to tell everybody about the podcast so we don't have to worry about that. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Spill the Wine Podcast, Instagram, Spill the Wine _podcast. And if you have any questions about this episode, if you have any wineries you'd like us to visit, hey, if you want to come out here and do a wine tasting with me, do a Spill the Wine, let's do a Spill the Wine crawl, then just send us an email at podcastspillthewine@gmail.com. We are really happy to be here and having a good time with you. And Ed, thank you very much and cheers.
Cheers.
We'll see you guys next time.